It started with a photograph. Tucked between bills on my kitchen counter, the envelope was unmarked. Inside, a single glossy image. My brother Thomas, smiling, shirt half unbuttoned, his arm draped around Emily, my ex-wife. The same woman who once cried on my shoulder about Thomas being too reckless when he got drunk at our wedding. The same brother who toasted our anniversary with slurred jokes about commitment. And now, they were in bed, together, their smiles soaked in intimacy that could only come from lies aged to perfection. At first, I thought it was old, a bad joke, but the timestamp in the corner glowed like a blade against my throat. 3 weeks ago, the final nail in a coffin I hadn't realized was still being built. Chapter 2. Sunday. Dinner, they say betrayal is sharpest when served by family. That Sunday, I walked into my parents' house carrying the photograph, not grief. I was ready to burn bridges. Mom met me at the door with her usual smile. "Daniel, sweetheart, you're just in time. Thomas brought that garlic bread you love." "Did he?" I said, stepping inside. He was already seated at the table. Same smug smirk, like his conscience had been surgically removed and replaced with charm. Emily wasn't with him. Of course not. They were careful, until they weren't. I dropped the photo between the mashed potatoes and the wine. Silence. Dad coughed. Mom's face drained of color. Thomas just stared. A flicker of guilt crossed his eyes, but it vanished just as fast. "Daniel, we didn't want you to find out like this," Mom whispered. "Find out what? That my brother was screwing my wife before the ink on our divorce even dried?" Dad stood up, voice stern. "She's not your wife anymore. And Thomas, he made a mistake, a human mistake. You two are brothers, blood. That matters more than anything." My jaw clenched. It didn't seem to matter when he was sneaking into her bed. Chapter 3. The journal, what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Emily had left something behind when she moved out. An old leather-bound journal wedged between the dresser and wall. I almost threw it away until I saw the first page. March 17th. I told Thomas we had to stop, but he said no one would ever believe Daniel, that even if they did, he'd just say I came on to him first. Every entry was worse than the last. It wasn't just betrayal, it was manipulation, gaslighting, a full-blown conspiracy. They had planned to come out as a couple after enough time passed. Let the dust settle. Spin the narrative. We fell in love after the divorce. It wasn't planned. It just happened. But the journal said otherwise. Chapter 4. The investigation. I wanted the truth to destroy them. Not just emotionally, legally. So I hired Claire Myers, a private investigator known for being equal parts brilliant and ruthless. Within 2 weeks, she had gathered damning evidence. Text messages, secret meetings, a suspicious wire transfer from Emily to Thomas 6 months before our divorce, marked consulting. She dug deeper and found an old college friend of Thomas, who recalled overhearing them at a bar years ago. "If Dan ever screws up, I swear I could treat Emily better than he ever did." It wasn't spontaneous. It was strategic. Chapter 5. The ultimatum. I returned to my parents' house with a folder in hand and a storm in my chest. "I want you to see what your golden son's done," I said, placing the evidence on the table. Mom refused to look at it. "What good will that do now?" Dad read every page, silent. Then he said, "So what do you want, Daniel? Revenge? We're still family." "Family?" I scoffed. "You're asking me to forgive the man who destroyed my marriage," and laughed. "In my face while doing it? Because hate will kill you faster than heartbreak ever will," Mom pleaded, tears brimming. I stared at them both. "Then maybe I'll die honest." Chapter 6. The unveiling Claire suggested one last move, something surgical. I agreed. 2 weeks later, at a family reunion organized under the pretense of healing, Claire arrived unannounced, dressed in black, camera in hand. She projected the contents of Emily's journal and the wire transfers onto a screen in front of 30 relatives. Gasps, whispers, aunts avoiding eye contact, uncles sipping whiskey like water. Emily fled within minutes. Thomas stood frozen. His voice cracked when he asked, "Why are you doing this?" "Because no one else will hold you accountable," I said. Chapter 7. The Unexpected. Ending months passed. Emily left town. Rumors said she moved to Denver and changed her last name. Thomas tried to sue for defamation, but the journal, the texts, the witnesses, they destroyed him. He lost his job, his friends, his image. My parents didn't speak to me for a long time. But then, on a rainy Tuesday, Dad showed up at my door. He looked old, tired. "You were right," he admitted. Voice cracked like old wood. "We protected a lie, and we lost both of our sons in the process." 6 months after the reunion, Thomas sat alone in a dim studio apartment above a rundown liquor store. Once the poster boy for charm and ambition, he was now a man living off expired canned beans and broken pride. His phone buzzed less and less. He stopped checking. The fallout had been swift. His firm terminated his contract after Claire's investigation revealed his financial entanglements with Emily during the divorce. He tried to paint himself as a victim, but the whispers were louder than his denials. And Emily, gone. No note, no goodbye, no forwarding address, only a voicemail. "We were supposed to rebuild something, Thomas." "Not destroy him. I can't live like this." He replayed it sometimes, but never to remember her voice, only to remind himself of how quickly alliances dissolve when they're born of betrayal. Then came the letters. Chapter 9. The anonymous notes, they started arriving one by one. No return address. Typed. Clinical. "You think this ends with Daniel?" "Secrets rot. Yours are fermenting. Confess or someone will." At first he laughed them off. But then came the photograph. One. He never remembered being taken. Him, Emily, in a cheap motel. Same day the wire transfer went through. He locked the door, bolted the windows, and started drinking more. Every creak in the hallway felt like a countdown. Then someone broke in. Nothing was stolen. Just a single word etched into the bathroom. Mirror. Confess. Chapter 10. The messenger Thomas finally cracked. He showed up at my door. He looked reduced, like someone had taken the man he used to be and carved him down to fragments. "You were right," he muttered. "I screwed up. I didn't come here for forgiveness. I came to warn you." "Warn me?" I crossed my arms, skeptical. "This better be good." "There's someone else," he said. "Someone who knew about Emily and me. Before we were even a thing. They've been sending letters, photos, threats. I don't know who it is, but they want both of us to burn." For the first time in years, I saw fear in my brother's eyes. Not fear of losing me, but of something far more dangerous. Something, or someone, unseen. Chapter 11. Claire returns. I called Claire. When she arrived, her eyes lit with that same spark I saw the night we exposed Emily. She listened quietly as Thomas recounted the threats, then calmly asked, "You think it's Emily?" He shook his head. "No, she wouldn't play games. She'd run." Claire opened a file she'd brought. "Then you should meet Evelyn, a former paralegal at Thomas's old firm. Sharp, quiet, and according to Claire's findings, fired after whistleblowing about insider trading which Thomas may have profited from. She had motive. She had access. She'd vanished 6 months ago. Your betrayal wasn't the only one, Claire said. You've been hurting people for years. Looks like someone's finally returning the favor. Chapter 12. The trap we set a trap. Claire baited a fake email chain between Thomas and Emily about a secret offshore account. 2 days later, someone broke into Thomas's apartment and downloaded data from his old hard drive. 3 nights. After that, Thomas was attacked. Nothing fatal, just enough to leave a message. The attacker wore gloves, a ski mask, and whispered a name before vanishing. Evelyn says hello. We traced the digital fingerprints. Evelyn, or whoever she was now, had changed her identity, but she'd left breadcrumbs, intentional ones. Like she wanted us to follow. The last one led to a cabin near Lake Andara. Claire and I went. Guns weren't our thing, but secrets like these don't end peacefully. Chapter 13. The Cabin Inside. The cabin, walls were plastered with photographs, articles, and scribbled notes. At the center, a corkboard titled Thomas and the Collateral. Damage. There were names I didn't recognize. Faces of people who, over the years, Thomas had manipulated, stepped over, or crushed, some professionally, some personally. But there was one photo that froze me cold, me. With the words innocent scribbled below, Claire scanned the room. "This isn't just revenge," she murmured. "This is an indictment." Then came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps behind us. A woman stepped in. Not Evelyn. Someone. Younger, dark eyes, confident posture. "I'm her sister," she said. "Evelyn's dead. Your brother ruined her life. And you, Daniel, protected him by silence." "I didn't know," I said, heart pounding. "Then why didn't you dig sooner?" Chapter 14. The revelation. Her name was Isabel Marks. She had watched her sister spiral after Thomas's firm scapegoated her. Evelyn tried to expose them, but no one listened. Not the courts, not the media. She took her own life in a hotel room in D.C. 3 years ago, and in her final note, one name circled, Thomas Weller. "I tried to get justice the right way," Isabel said, tears threatening. "But you can't fight fire with petitions, so I learned to burn back." She handed me a drive. "It's all here. Bank records, emails. Enough to bury him. But I needed you to see the whole picture. Because, Daniel, the rot wasn't just in your marriage, it was in your family's name." Chapter 15. A different kind of forgiveness. I took the drive. Watched hours of data unravel like a noose. Thomas wasn't just a cheating brother. He was a career manipulator. Financial crimes, exploited people, sabotaged careers. Emily was just the final betrayal, not the first. I turned the drive in. This time, there was no Sunday dinner, no reunion. Thomas was arrested 3 days later. Mom cried when she called. "Why didn't you just let it go?" Because I couldn't. Because Evelyn didn't. Because justice is not forgiveness wrapped in a family photo. It's a reckoning epilogue. 1 year later, I still visit that cabin. Isabel moved away somewhere coastal. Sends postcards. Claire opened. Her own agency. She named it E&M Investigations. Evelyn and Marks. And me? I've started writing again. First as therapy, then as testimony. Because somewhere, someone is being told to let it go by people who don't carry the scars. To them, I say, sometimes, the most honest love letter you can write to yourself is the truth you refuse to bury. 3 years earlier, Evelyn Marks stood before the ethics board of Kensington Capital. Pale, trembling, but her voice held. "I have proof Thomas Weller used insider information to profit from pre-acquisition trades," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "He used burner phones, ghost accounts. He's not alone. But he's the keystone." The board chair glanced at the evidence, sighed, and set it aside. "You're under review for unauthorized access of private firm data. You're not here to accuse anyone. I'm trying to save what's left of this firm's integrity. The Man didn't even blink. "Ms. Marks, consider this your formal termination. Security will escort you out." Outside the glass door, Thomas stood, tie immaculate, face unreadable. He winked at her as she passed. She never set foot in a boardroom again. Chapter 17. A Slow Death. Evelyn's decline wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, quiet, the kind no one writes stories about because it doesn't bleed. One by one, job interviews vanished. Her name was blacklisted in financial circles. Her apartment lease mysteriously canceled. Her credit score imploded. She moved in with her sister, Isabel, a teacher living in a one-bedroom flat. Evelyn barely spoke. She sat near the window most days, whispering names under her breath like a prayer or a curse. One night, Isabel woke up to find Evelyn gone. She found her the next morning in the bathtub, alive, barely, a cry for help. But help never came. Not from the authorities, not from the press. No one cared. When Evelyn finally succeeded, it wasn't dramatic either. A note, a hotel room, a locked door, a final message typed neatly, "Tell my story," or "Let him live with my silence." Either way, I'm done. Chapter 18. Becoming Isabel Marks didn't cry at the funeral. She filed police reports, sent letters, met with reporters, but Evelyn had no powerful last name, no prestige, just pain. The case was quietly closed. Then Isabel found Evelyn's private journal, pages of code, records, and observations. Not just about Thomas, but about the firm, the shell companies, the entire corrupt ecosystem. Evelyn had already begun to build a case, but she hadn't known who to trust. Isabel learned quickly. She didn't burn, she learned. Coding, surveillance, data mining. She found forums, teachers, hidden corners of the internet that taught her how to become invisible and how to weaponize a digital ghost. In 2 years, she went from grieving sister to the silent storm behind every anonymous tip. She became Evelyn's whisper from beyond the grave. Chapter 19. Her first target. The first person she exposed wasn't Thomas. It was the partner who signed off on Evelyn's dismissal. She leaked a tax evasion scandal to the IRS. He lost everything. The second target was a lawyer who helped cover Thomas's shell accounts. She sent the documents to the Bar Association. License revoked. She never touched Thomas directly until he made the mistake of reappearing in her world. With Emily. With public betrayal. Now she knew where he was vulnerable. That's when the letters began. Chapter 20. No heroes, only debts. Back in the present, I stood with Isabel on the cabin porch, watching the lake catch the silver breath of moonlight. "You could have gone to the police with that drive," I said. "Why involve me?" She shrugged, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Because you needed to know what kind of man your brother really was. Because this story didn't start with Emily." She looked at me. It started with silence. Yours, mine, Evelyn's. I felt the weight of it. The years I spent looking away, chalking up Thomas's wins to ambition, ignoring the gnawing suspicion that he'd never played fair. "Do you hate me too?" I asked. Isabel's gaze didn't soften. "No, but I don't trust you to tell the truth unless it hurts." And she was right. Chapter 21. Aftershocks. Thomas's arrest made headlines, not because of the cheating scandal, but because of the financial conspiracy spanning 3 states and implicating several high-level investors. Isabel's data was irrefutable. He took a plea deal, 8 years. My parents begged me to appeal. "He's your brother," but I'd buried that word. I didn't attend the sentencing. Isabel did. When she left the courthouse, reporters swarmed her. She said only one thing. He didn't kill my sister with a gun. He killed her with silence, with power, with his smile. And I just made sure someone finally listened. Epilogue. Truth. Told a year later, I published a book, The Price of Brotherhood. Not a memoir, a confession. I donated all proceeds to a mental health fund named after Evelyn. Isabel read it. She didn't say much. Just sent me a note. The truth doesn't resurrect the dead, but it starves the lies that buried them. We don't speak often, but sometimes justice doesn't need friendship. Sometimes it only needs a voice, and I finally found mine. Chapter 22. The cell Thomas Weller had never been afraid of tight spaces until the door clanged shut behind him for the first time. Unit F, Cell 19. Medium security, they called it. But inside, it felt like the air had barbed wire in. His cellmate was a man named Ray, mid-40s, gray-bearded, and silent as a shadow. Former hedge fund manager, wire fraud, 12 years in. Ray didn't speak for 2 weeks. Then one night, over powdered eggs and black coffee, he finally broke the silence. "You lied big," Ray said. "The system likes small lies. Big ones? They make examples out of those." Thomas stared at his tray. "I never thought I'd get caught," Ray chuckled. "That's 'cause you thought you were smart. You weren't. You were lucky. That luck ran out." Chapter 23. The visitors. You don't want. 6 months in, Thomas got a visit, not from his parents, not from me, from Emily. She sat behind the glass, stomach visibly rounded. 7 months pregnant. Thomas leaned in. "I didn't expect you to come." She stared at him with hollow eyes. "You're not listed on the birth certificate." He blinked. "What?" "I'm moving to Oregon," she said. "My sister lives there. We'll be near water, trees, far from this." Thomas laughed bitterly. "So that's it? You're cutting me out?" "I loved you," she said. "But I don't want our child growing up thinking lying is normal. That betrayal is love." She stood, hands trembling slightly. "Goodbye, Thomas." He watched her leave, not with anger, but with the dawning knowledge that he was the ghost now, haunting no one but himself. Chapter 24. When Ghosts Speak. A year into his sentence, Thomas received a letter. No return address. Just 4 words typed across a blank page. "Do you remember Evelyn?" He didn't sleep that night. By morning, a second envelope appeared in his bunk. Inside, a photo, Evelyn Marks. Smiling, laughing, younger. Before he poisoned her career. Behind it, scribbled in faint ink, "You killed her, but you will remember her." The next week, a USB drive arrived through a smuggled line from the outside. On it, recordings, Evelyn's voice, her journal entries, her despair. The prison counselor found Thomas curled up in the rec room that night, eyes bloodshot, whispering, her name like an invocation. Chapter 25. Redemption is a mirage. By the second year, Thomas tried to start a writing class for fellow inmates. He pitched it as creative recovery, an attempt to tell real stories, to dig deep. It didn't catch on. A few joined. Most mocked him. Ray said it straight. You can't sell redemption in a place full of men who know what it costs. Still, Thomas wrote, 100 pages about Evelyn, about Isabel, about the things he took, the people he broke. One day he mailed it to me. It came without a note, no pretense, just a manuscript titled Confessions of a Beautiful Liar. Chapter 26. Isabel's Choice. I gave it to her. Isabel. She read it in silence, page after page. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't change. When she finished, she set it down and said, "He's still trying to make the story about himself." I nodded. "But is that a start?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't want his guilt," she said finally. "I want his silence to echo as long as Evelyn's did." She didn't burn the manuscript, but she didn't publish it either. She left it at Evelyn's grave. Maybe some truths are meant to be buried with the dead. Epilogue. Legacy Thomas Weller. Served his time. 8 years. Parole denied twice. When he was finally released, no one was waiting. No banners. No second chances. He changed his name, moved north. He volunteers now, quietly, in a halfway house, helping others rebuild. He never speaks of who he was, but every year on the date of Evelyn's death, an anonymous donation hits the marks. Fund for whistleblowers and mental health. A silent acknowledgement, a ghost keeping his promise. And somewhere in a dusty cabin, Isabel Marks still watches the world, eyes sharp, heart guarded. She doesn't believe in forgiveness, but she believes in consequences, and sometimes that's enough. Chapter 27. Her name is Clara. She found the manuscript on her mother's shelf. A thick, weathered stack of pages bound with a rubber band, yellowed at the edges. Clara never knew the name Thomas Weller. She knew her name, Clara Emerson. She was 19 now. A second-year journalism student with a taste for cold truths and coffee that could bite back. Her mother, Emily, never said much about the past. She spoke in avoidances. Some stories don't belong in daylight, she'd say, but Clara had. Her father's curiosity, and the uncanny sense that people were never quite telling her the full truth, and then she read the first line of the manuscript. "I stole everything beautiful in my life, and the most painful part is that I did it knowingly." Chapter 28. A door. No one wanted. Opened, she read it in one night. She didn't sleep. Names, dates, betrayals, a woman named Evelyn, broken, and discarded. An aunt named Isabel she'd only seen twice. An uncle, Matthew, who sounded like the kind of man the world tried to make smaller. And her father, a man with poison in his charm and acid in his ambition. She confronted her mother that morning. "You told me he was gone. Dead. You never said who he was." Emily froze. "He's not your father anymore." "But he was," Clara snapped. "And he still is, whether you like it or not." Chapter 29. A visit to Isabel. Isabel Marks hadn't aged much in Clara's mind, but the real woman was sharper than memory allowed. Gray streaks in her hair, lines around her eyes, but still iron-willed, still surgical in her gaze. "I know who you are," Isabel said the second Clara walked in. "I want answers." Isabel gave a small smile. "I bet you do." They sat for 3 hours. No coffee, no soft edges, just history raw, ragged. When Clara left, she wasn't the same girl. She left carrying Evelyn's journal, a copy of the court documents, surveillance photos, everything Isabel had kept, just in case. "What are you going to do?" Isabel asked at the door. Clara looked back. "I'm going to write what he never could." Chapter 30. One last. Ghost. The cabin Thomas lived in was modest, wood-paneled, wind-worn, with stacks of firewood and solitude. He hadn't seen his daughter since she was 6. He recognized her immediately. She didn't speak for a full minute, just looked at him, then, "Finally, you never called me." "I didn't think I had the right," Thomas said. Clara laid the manuscript down on his table. "I read it, but I'm not here for closure. I'm here for truth." He nodded slowly. And then, like a man unlocking a vault in his soul, he started talking about Evelyn, about Isabel, about his brother, and about the man he used to be. Epilogue. Blood doesn't wash away. Ink Clara's article shook the walls of silence. Tomorrow's crimes. The legacy of silence among the powerful. It went viral in 2 days. It was more than just her father's sins. It was a blueprint of what corruption, looked like when it wore a smile and shook hands. She didn't use Thomas's new name. She didn't give him anonymity. But she did quote his final words to her. "If my daughter's light burns through my shadow, then maybe I did one thing right." Isabel read the article under a dim lamp, wine in hand, and finally allowed herself a breath she hadn't taken in years. Emily framed it. Quiet pride etched in silence. And Thomas? He watched it unfold from his porch, under a gray sky, knowing that some legacies don't live in monuments, they live in truth told at last. Chapter 31. The Box. Beneath the floorboards, Clara moved back to Portland after the article blew up. The university offered her an honorary journalism award, and a small press reached out to publish her piece as a full-length exposé. But she couldn't focus. There was something gnawing at her, something off. When she revisited the cabin after her father left, he'd relocated after the article went public, she noticed the loose floorboard near the fireplace. Underneath it, a locked tin box. Inside, a faded passport, a burner phone, dead but intact, and dozens of photos, most of them surveillance style. Taken through windows, zoomed in on faces in public spaces. In every photo, the same man, early 60s. Always in a different setting, watching different people. Some photos had dates, some had locations, but one detail chilled her. 3 photos were of Evelyn, and the most recent photo, dated 6 months before Evelyn's death, wasn't taken by Thomas. It was taken of him. Chapter 32. The archivist Clara took the photos to Isabel. Isabel studied them in silence. Her fingers trembled, not from age, but from recognition. "I know that man," she said finally. "His name is Warren Dreel." "Who is he?" Isabel exhaled. "He was a handler." "For what?" "For making people disappear, quietly, disgracefully, without gunshots, just ruin." "He worked with Thomas?" "No." "Above him," Clara blinked. "You mean Thomas wasn't the end?" Isabel nodded slowly. "He was a middleman, the cleaner. Dreel was the one who decided who got dirty." Chapter 33. The ghost network Clara went digging. The more she searched, the more she realized Dreel didn't officially exist. No social security. No digital footprint, but she found whispers, testimonies in obscure forums, old declassified memos, a redacted name in a congressional ethics report from 1997. Then came the email. No subject line, no text, just an image attachment. It was a photo of Clara, taken the day before, through a window. In her apartment, the message was clear. Back off. Chapter 34. Letters from a prisoner, Clara returned to the source, her father. She visited a hidden halfway house outside Ashland, where he now worked in the kitchen and lived under the name Ben Kincaid. He didn't look surprised to see her. "I knew this would follow you," he said. "That's why I buried it." "Who is he, Dad?" Thomas leaned forward. "He's the man who told me to ruin Evelyn. He gave the nod, handed me the files, knew what would happen." "Why?" "Because Evelyn found something she wasn't supposed to." "What?" He looked away. "That I never found out, because she didn't write it down." Chapter 35. Evelyn's lost files. Clara's final lead came from a tip, a message from a burner Reddit account with no history. "Ask Isabel about the self-storage unit registered in Evelyn's name, Unit 23F, Hillsborough. She went the I. Next day. The unit was dusty, sealed since 2014. Inside, a broken laptop, bundles of notes, 2 disposable phones, and a voice recorder. She took everything. Later that night, she played the recorder, Evelyn's voice. "They think I'm bluffing. But if these documents leak, if the Dreel files surface, this won't just end careers. It'll expose everything. The offshore accounts, the suicides, the blackmail fund, everything. Static. Then a final line. If I disappear, I didn't. Run. I was erased. Chapter 36. Isabel's warning Clara sat with the files for hours. She didn't sleep. She called Isabel at 3 a.m. I know what Evelyn found. Offshore laundering through charities, shell nonprofits, used to blackmail politicians and destroy whistleblowers. Isabel was silent. Then, Clara, listen to me carefully. If you publish this, you will be watched, followed, threatened. I already have been. Then you have a choice. Live to tell a part of the truth, or die trying to tell all of it. To be continued. Chapter 37. The man in the cafe. The cafe was crowded, loud, normal. It was the perfect place for something unnatural. Clara spotted him before he sat. Warren Dreel looked like an insurance adjuster. Gray suit, calm eyes, too calm. Sat across from her without asking. "You've been busy," he said. "You've been watching me." "Correct. It's what I do." Clara didn't flinch. "I know about the offshore networks," she said. "The whistleblower fund, the suicides. You engineered." He smiled softly like she'd just said something charming. "And yet, here you are. No bodyguards. No encrypted line. Just a girl with a recorder in her purse." She leaned forward. "What do you want?" "I want to offer you something your father never had." "What's that?" "A choice." Chapter 38. The choice, he slid a card across the table. Unmarked. Black, a single phone number on the back. "Call that number in the next 72 hours, Dreel said. "And you'll get a new identity, a new job, access to the real story, the full network. You'd be inside it." Clara's voice was ice. "You want me to join you?" "No, not me. The people I serve." "Why me?" "Because you're good. And because good people with fire in their blood make the best tools." She laughed once, bitter. "I'm not for sale." He stood, buttoned his coat. "Everyone's for sale. The smart ones just pick their price." Then he was gone. Chapter 39. Thomas knew. She went back to the halfway house. Thomas saw it in her eyes. "You met Dreel. He offered me the world." Thomas nodded slowly. "He did that to me, too." Clara swallowed. "Why'd you say yes?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "Because I was weak, because I thought I could take their money, play their games, and walk away clean. But people like Dreel don't let go. They own you with the first favor." "And Evelyn?" "They asked me to bury her. Not physically, just discredit her. I didn't know they'd go further." "Did you love her?" His face cracked. "Yes, and that's the worst part. I loved her. And I still did it." Chapter 40. The Vault Clara traced Evelyn's breadcrumbs to a vault beneath an old legal firm in Seattle, a shell operation. She posed as a paralegal intern. Took photos, copied hard drives, inside the vault, physical files, not digital, paper, original, names, signatures, transfer records, payoffs to judges, dossiers on journalists who disappeared, and one name jumped off the page: Matthew Weller. Her uncle. The man her father betrayed, but there was a file on him, tagged "recruitment attempt failed." They had tried to pull him in, and when he said no, they used Thomas to destroy him. Chapter 41. A second offer. The phone rang. At 2 a.m. blocked number. She let it go to voicemail. She played it once. "This is Dreel. You have until midnight tomorrow. Take the deal, or watch what happens when people think you're dangerous." She didn't call back, but she didn't sleep either. She sat at her desk, Evelyn's recorder beside her, her father's, manuscript open, and a note in her own handwriting. Truth doesn't survive in silence, but neither does the one who speaks it. Chapter 42. The Explosion. The bomb tore through her apartment at 3:17 a.m. She wasn't there. She was watching from a rooftop across the street, camera in hand, as the flames licked the night sky. She'd expected it. She'd baited them. Her backup drive was already with Isabel. And the next morning, her second article hit the internet. The Hidden State. How one man's affair revealed a network of political extortion. Clara named names. She exposed accounts, files, connections. She didn't write it like a journalist. She wrote it like someone with nothing left to lose. Epilogue. The man in the rain drilla was gone, vanished. Some said he left the country. Some said he was cleaned up by the very people he once served. Thomas Weller died 6 months later. Stroke. His last letter to Clara read, "You were always the best of us, even when you didn't know what us was. I never deserved to call you my daughter, but I am so glad you were." Clara never forgave him, but she kept the letter, and Matthew? He reappeared quietly, anonymously, and began working with Isabel and Clara behind the scenes. A new network, transparent, independent. They called it Project Evelyn, dedicated to whistleblowers, to truth, to the people who are destroyed for doing the right thing. Clara had returned to Matthew's old farmhouse in rural Oregon, a place time had forgotten, the kind of place where grief had room to rot slowly and undisturbed. She hadn't meant to stay long, just to drop off some files, maybe close a chapter. But something about the creak in the floorboards near the fireplace nagged at her, and when she pried up the warped plank, her fingers found a weathered tin box. Inside, a bundle of letters, tied with string. The first one labeled E. Weller, 1993, burn if found. She didn't burn it. She read, "To Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means I'm either dead or stupid enough to think I can outrun ghosts. You were right. About Thomas. About what he became. But what you didn't know was that he wasn't alone. There was a third, not Dreel, not someone like that. Someone worse, because they were family. Ask yourself, why did our father suddenly cut ties with both of us in '78? Why did Mother vanish from the papers before she died? The answers are buried in the place we swore we'd never return to. Hollow Point. M. Chapter 44. Hollow Point. Clara had never heard of it. Neither had Isabel. But a database search pulled up one match. An abandoned mining town in Nevada. Population, 0. Owned by a shell company called Margrave Holdings, LLC. She didn't hesitate. She packed her bag, and by midnight she was driving, across the desert with the windows down and the old letter in her lap. A whisper of paranoia kept pace with the hum of the tires. Was someone following her? Was someone already there? Chapter 45. Ghost Town Hollow Point wasn't even on most maps anymore. Just rusted signs, boarded-up cabins, and a chapel with shattered windows. But one building remained oddly intact, the old sheriff's office. Inside, she found a filing cabinet, locked. She didn't need a key, just a crowbar and a well-placed kick. Inside, birth certificates, arrest records, ledgers, and then, in the bottom drawer, a photo. Her father, Thomas, a third man, and Evelyn, all laughing. Behind them, a sign read, Hollow Point Mineral Trust, 1976. There was something wrong with the man in the middle, his face. Clara turned the photo over. A name written in faded ink. Jonah Weller. Chapter 46. The True Patriarch. Jonah Weller was her grandfather, dead supposedly in 1980, but the files told a different story. He wasn't just some miner, he was the founder of Margrave Holdings. He built a shadow empire with mining profits, laundering money through phantom charities, influencing small-town judges, and installing men like Dreel into places of power. The truth hit Clara like a hammer. This didn't start with Thomas or Evelyn or Matthew. This started with Jonah. Her family wasn't corrupted. They were born from it. Chapter 47. Jonah. Lives that night, Clara woke in the motel to the sound of static. Her burner phone, plugged into a secure line, had lit up, unknown. Number. She hesitated, then answered. Clara. The voice was old, gravel-thick. She froze. Who is this? You're digging up bones. You'll wish you hadn't. She didn't answer. You think Thomas was the fall. He was the first sacrifice. You think Evelyn was innocent. She made her choices too. You're Jonah. The silence was her. Answer. Then he said, go home, or I'll bury you deeper than your father ever dared. Click Chapter 48. The final ledger. Clara didn't go home. She met Isabel at a storage facility in Sacramento. Together, they decrypted the ledger Evelyn had buried in code based on children's fables and nursery rhymes. Inside, they found a map of Margrave's influence, government contracts, bank laundering nodes, retired operatives turned consultants. One name popped up repeatedly, Aaron Weller, a cousin, a ghost from Clara's childhood. Now, a venture capitalist in Palo Alto, a puppet or a player? Clara whispered, he's the heir. Isabel said, then we're not done, not even close. Clara had only met Aaron Weller once. She was 7. He was 13. Sharp jaw, sharper tongue. He'd looked at her like she was a question he'd already answered. Now he was 38. Worth over $600 million, ran a boutique investment firm called Covenant Partners. Isabel's words echoed in Clara's head as they sat in the car outside his glass tower in downtown Palo Alto. If Jonah's ghost needed a face in this century, it would wear Aaron's skin. They weren't wrong. Aaron's firm had fingers in biotech, surveillance startups, military contracting, just like Jonah's did in the 70s, only sleeker, legal, sanitized, but the rot smelled the same. Chapter 50. Tea and Teeth Clara got in. By posing as a journalist. Legacy Magazine. Profiling third-generation family dynasties. Aaron's assistant, an android in human form, offered her green tea and a tight smile. When Aaron stepped in, he recognized her instantly. Clara Weller. Didn't think the dead stayed curious. He didn't offer his hand. She didn't stand. I'm writing a story, she said, about what my family became. Aaron sat. Be careful. Stories tend to become histories when told enough times. And histories, he said, get people killed. He poured his own tea. Jasmine, do you believe in blood oaths? She asked. He chuckled. I believe in leverage. Chapter 51. The Book of Names, Isabel broke into Aaron's secondary residence that night, a vineyard in Sonoma. What she found in the cellar wasn't wine. It was a vault, and inside the vault, a leather-bound ledger, with symbols etched. In Latin, dates spanning 3 generations. And names, so many names, lawyers, judges, politicians, mid-level accountants in federal oversight offices, all marked, coded, and updated meticulously. Clara whispered when she saw the photo Isabel took. It's the same system Jonah used. No, Isabel said. It's evolved. Next to the name Matthew Weller was a red X. Next to Clara's, a question mark. Chapter 52. Choice Aaron invited Clara to dinner, an old money club in San Francisco. Wood-paneled. Waiters that moved like ghosts. He wore no tie. Just confidence like it was bespoke. Your father died trying to expose the machine, Aaron said. But it doesn't matter who built it anymore. Jonah, Evelyn, me. It runs without us now. Clara leaned in. Then why am I still alive? Because you fascinate me, he said simply. He pulled out an envelope. Inside, a check. 8 figures. Walk away. Use this to start over. Or, he said, tapping the table. Use it to join me. Silence. Then, I want a name, she said. Aaron smiled. Who? Clara said one word. Drill. Chapter 53. The Judas. File. Aaron didn't flinch. He handed her a flash drive. This is the Judas file. Something even Jonah didn't know I kept. You'll find records on Drill, yes. But also Evelyn. Clara narrowed her eyes. You're giving me everything? Aaron sipped his wine. I'm betting on you. And if I turn it over to the FBI? He grinned. They'll vanish, like they always do. The question isn't if you destroy us, Clara. It's whether you become something worse trying. She left without the check, but she took the drive. Chapter 54. Evelyn's gambit, the Judas file, confirmed what Clara feared. Evelyn hadn't been trying to destroy Jonah in her final years. She'd been trying to replace him. Every move she made, leaking information, manipulating Matthew, even seducing Thomas again, had been part of a long, slow coup. But something went wrong. Matthew refused to be molded. So she gave him up to protect Clara. Buried at the end of the file was a letter. One Evelyn never sent. She has his fire, his defiance. She'll never serve anyone's empire. Not mine, not Jonah's, not Aaron's. I only hope I bought her enough time. Clara read the last line twice. I just hope she never finds the Judas file. Chapter 55. Fire. Or, as Clara now had a choice, expose everything, knowing the system might bury it again, or join Aaron, change it from within. Corrupt the rot! Guide the decay! She turned to Isabel, who had stood beside her through every betrayal. What would you do? Clara asked. Isabel's voice was raw. Quiet. I'd burn it all, but that's why I'm not you. Clara looked out, at the city. Then she pressed send to every major news outlet, to every blacklisted whistleblower, to every forgotten investigator Matthew once trusted. The Judas file, unredacted, no safety net, no backing out, just truth, and the fire it would bring. At 6:43 a.m., a low-ranking intern at a Seattle affiliate station was the first to open the unmarked email with the subject line, "This is what they never wanted you to see." By 9:15 a.m., trending hashtags included All's Judas File, All's Weller Legacy, and Sons of Jonah. By noon, 2 federal agents were found dead, one of them Thomas Mercer, Clara's former handler. The news didn't report that part, but Clara knew. She received a burner text. You made them panic. Good, but they're cleansing now. Be ready. Signed, A.W. Aaron Weller had placed his bet. Now he was watching the pieces burn. Chapter 57. The letter from Matthew days later, Clara. Received a manila envelope hand-delivered by a child on a bike. Inside, a single page. Her father's handwriting. I never asked you to carry my war, Clara. But if you're reading this, you already chose it. I tried to be a brother before I was a man, and I failed. I gave Thomas too much trust, Evelyn too much power, and Jonah too much fear. But you're the only one who ever saw the beast and dared call it by name. Keep going, not for revenge, not for me, but so no one else becomes a soldier in a war they didn't start. Clara wept, but only for a moment. Then she picked up the phone. Chapter 58. The gathering storm, the Judas file sparked riots. Senators were named, tech CEOs exposed, offshore accounts frozen, false identities unraveled. The Department of Justice formed a Truth Commission. But the heads of that commission were listed in the file, too. No one trusted anyone anymore. But one name stood out in the noise. Clara Weller, the woman who exposed the empire. Her face on magazine covers. Op-eds debated whether she was a hero or a traitor, and then she vanished. No press conferences, no appearances. Gone. Except to one place. Chapter 59. The Vineyard. She met Aaron again at the vineyard, where the Judas file had first been, hidden. He was already drinking when she arrived. "They're devouring each other," he said. Clara nodded. "You always wanted the purge. You just never wanted the truth." Aaron laughed. "Truth is a weapon, and I handed it to you." "You handed it to me," she said, "because you knew I'd do what you were too afraid to." He didn't argue. "You came to kill me?" he asked. Clara stared at him. "No." She handed him a sealed envelope. "Your copy of the new ledger," she said. "Names we missed, people still hiding, the ones not in the Judas file." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "You trust me with this?" "No," she said. "I want you to know I don't need you anymore." Chapter 60. The House. My brother built weeks passed. An international tribunal was formed. Aaron Weller was summoned. He never arrived. He was declared dead 3 months later. Jet exploded mid-flight. Clara didn't attend the memorial. She was in Lisbon, quietly watching the markets she once sought to destroy reshape themselves. Slower now, cautious, under scrutiny. One day, Isabel joined her carrying an old photo. It was of Matthew, Thomas, Evelyn, Jonah, and Clara, age 5, smiling in the background. "I think," Isabel said, "your father finally forgives himself." Clara said nothing. But that night, she started writing. A memoir? No. A ledger. This time, not of names, but of stories. And in the margin of the first page, she wrote, "My brother betrayed me. My family tried to silence me. But I became what they never saw coming, a historian with a matchstick. And this is the house my brother built, then burned, and I walked out of." A year after Clara's disappearance from public life, a shadow surfaced in the corridors of power. Cameron Vance, son of the elusive corporate fixer, Elliot Vance, had always been in the background. His father's disappearance had been a footnote, a chapter never discussed. But Cameron? He was someone in the making. His resume wasn't flashy, just a few degrees, a couple of small startups under his belt, but enough to turn heads when he came knocking. It was Aaron Weller's death that thrust Cameron into the light. He appeared in public with a calm, almost unsettling precision, taking control of Covenant partners with the efficiency of a man who had always been a part of the empire, waiting for the right moment to step forward. He spoke of new beginnings, transparency, and the need for fresh blood. But those who had survived the chaos of the Weller dynasty noticed the way Cameron handled himself. A practiced charisma, a mind that moved too quickly, and, most importantly, his eyes. They weren't just eyes. They were the eyes of a student. He had been Aaron's protege. He knew everything, and now he had access to the Judas file. Chapter 62. The Unfinished Ledger. The manuscript Clara had started was never finished. The words kept coming, streaming out like a river, until one night they stopped. She didn't finish the last chapter. She didn't write the ending. What she didn't know, what she could never have predicted, was that in the years following her disappearance, someone else picked up where she left off, a hacker group, or perhaps just a few rogue journalists. They discovered the remnants of Clara's unpublished work, the pages that detailed everything from her family's origins to the intricate web of lies she had unraveled. But they also found her unfinished ledger, and someone, perhaps someone, who had studied it too closely, took those unfinished pages and filled them in. Chapter 63. A New Empire. It was the sudden appearance of an anonymous figure at the Covenant Partners Gala that night that sent ripples through the corporate world. Cameron Vance stood on the balcony, observing the room as champagne flowed, and executives laughed. But his attention wasn't on them. It was on the figure who had walked in unnoticed. quiet, almost invisible. She approached Cameron with a quiet confidence. "You didn't think I'd let you have all the fun, did you?" Clara's voice was as cold as the glass in her hand. Cameron didn't flinch. "I didn't think you were coming back." Clara smiled faintly. "I wasn't. Not until you decided to play the game you think you understand." The room had been watching them. The buzz had begun. "But you've already lost," Clara said, her eyes narrowing. "How?" Cameron asked, intrigued. "You've been playing catch-up since the moment Aaron died. You think you know what's in the Judas file? You think you control the Empire?" She leaned in, her voice now low and dangerous. "You didn't finish what we started. You're a footnote in a much bigger story." The conversation was interrupted as a commotion unfolded behind them. A sudden blast of light and sound filled the room. Chapter 64. The reckoning. Clara hadn't been alone. Her return wasn't just an emotional one. It was a statement. The truth, now fully exposed, was impossible to ignore. More files had surfaced in the days leading to this moment. More names, more connections, and more secrets, all falling like dominoes. The media took notice. The stock market staggered. And just as the Covenant Partners Gala became the stage for the grandest power play, a new wave of revelations hit the airwaves. Aaron Weller's fortune, extracted from his empire, was now scattered in different directions. But not without consequences. The night of the gala, as Cameron Vance made his strategic speech, he was arrested. The FBI had caught up with him, and as the media swarmed around him, Clara stood silently in the background, knowing the game was finally over for those who thought they could outrun it. Chapter 65. The Aftermath. Clara didn't stay to witness the fallout of Cameron's fall from grace. By the time the dust settled, by the time the empire she had once tried to escape crumbled into nothing but charred remains, she was already far away. Somewhere where the name Weller didn't carry the weight of blood and betrayal. It was in the hills of Italy, overlooking a vineyard that was quiet now, abandoned but beautiful. The legacy had come full circle. Clara sat on a stone bench, her fingers grazing the ledger she had left behind. But it wasn't hers anymore, not fully. The world had rewritten it. The final chapter of the Weller dynasty had been written.